3. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel. Today, I'm super excited. I have my dear colleague and friend, Hollis Hardiman. She's a private wealth advisor. So Hollis provides financial retirement and wealth management services for her clients. She specializes in helping people navigate major life transitions, including divorce, the loss of a spouse, and preparing for retirement. She's a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, which we go CDFA for all people when you see those initials. Hollis firmly believes in building a support team of divorce professionals, including attorneys, mediators, therapists, coaches, that can help her clients make the best decisions during emotional times. She's a child of divorced parents, and she's witnessed firsthand the consequences when sound financial decisions are not made. So just financial decision making isn't just for the adults. So Hollis is certified in both mediation and collaborative divorce. She is well trained to advocate for one party or serve as a neutral for a party for the couple during the divorce process. While being part of the support system with the attorneys and mediators, Hollis is able to guide her clients through their short and long-term settlement options. Through Divorce Resource of Connecticut, and if you haven't checked them out, check out Divorce Resource of Connecticut. Hollis provides monthly divorce workshops to help women navigate the complicated process of separation and divorce. And I believe that is your second Saturday program, right, Hollis?
Yes.
Yeah. So Hollis grew up in Fairfield, and she now splits her time, poor baby, between Fairfield, Connecticut, and Palm City, Florida. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her husband, extended family, walking her 2 dogs, and playing tennis. And Hollis, you know, it's snowy and cold in Connecticut, so I don't have much sympathy for you.
Nobody ever does. Nobody ever does. I'm like, you know, I'm having a cranky day, and they're like, just go outside and take a walk. I'm like, you're right.
It's true. But I was a little encouraged to hear that it's raining in Florida today, and it's a beautiful sunny day in Connecticut. So thanks for coming on. I'm really excited to see you and to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Why I wanted you to come on, and I've met you before. We've met at other events when you've been up in Connecticut pre-COVID, when we had the good old days, when we'd be able to go to events and connect and see each other. So I wanted you to come on because I was really interested in finances and women, but finances and women and divorce, which are sometimes similar and sometimes not so similar. But I wanted to talk about some of the trends I wouldn't say trends, some of the patterns that you've seen with women and divorce. So can you tell me like some of the patterns that over your course of experience that you've seen?
Yeah. So I've seen it single-handedly growing up as a child, and which was over 30-something years ago, and that trend I believe still continues today, which is really the division of household responsibilities in the family, and most often the money and the financial decisions get taken over by the male, the husband. And whether it's because he's more comfortable with it, or it's a control issue, or the wife is consumed with the children, and there's division of household duties that go on in every house, and more often than not, the financial aspect of it stays with the husband. So where that creates some turmoil is when the marriage breaks down for whatever reason, and the woman is now trying to understand her life. A big picture of that she doesn't understand is the finances. And I always say, it's like, your husband could take care of the baby if you had a baby and he was alone with the baby. He could change the diapers, and he could, do the bottle and do it and feed and do everything. But, is he going to be great at it? Does he want to do it as much? Probably not. And that seems to be the same with the finances. The woman is preoccupied, and the man is comfortable writing the checks and taking care of the bills and making the decisions. And it's all great while the marriage is working, potentially.
Right.
But when there's a breakdown, what happens? And how does the woman now start to take an additional responsibility that is overwhelming and also a different language? You start talking about stocks and bonds and investments. We don't really learn that stuff in school.
Right, absolutely.
So it's a completely overwhelming job to say, okay, not only is my life changing and I have to relearn who I am as a single person, but now I'm responsible for taking over bills and making payments and watching, my checking account go up and down. And I have no idea how that happens.
Well, one of the things I think, which is helpful to have somebody like you, is that as a woman, sometimes you feel more comfortable going to another woman because she might get you in a way that, a man may not. Because even when I hear you talking, I hear you saying, family dynamics, how the woman's role typically in a house, if she's going to stay home, or even if she's working, she's definitely preoccupied in a different way than the man is. And I think that's one of the beauties of, as women, going to female financial planners is the understanding you get. And hopefully it sounds like what you're saying too is a little push, like, well, you could take care of the diapers.
And I totally agree. And, I hear more often than not, even if the couple does work together on their finances and they're with the male financial advisor, before you know it, it turns into a whole conversation about sports.
Right.
And, the woman it's just going in one ear and out the other. And there's not much learning going on her end, or the advisor isn't maybe taking time to explain it to her because maybe the husband understands, so they don't start from the basics.
Right.
And I believe that we all know knowledge is power, right? So let's start understanding the basics of finances, the basics of budgeting, the basics of how to, run a checkbook, when your bills are due, and just taking a little bit of control. And listen, there's people like me to hire to invest. You don't need to be, savvy on stocks and bonds, just like you don't need to be savvy on taxes because you're going to hire a CPA to do them.
Right.
But, I do believe in educating the woman as she comes to me so she can make better financial decisions on her own now that she's going to need to be making those decisions on her own.
Like I have, my daughter's 28. She's not married yet, but what I encourage her to do is like have an understanding going in about the terms, about where your money is. Maybe you don't have to do it on the daily. She's single, but she'll eventually marry the young man she's with, I think. But I want her to be educated about that because, as you said, which was always one of her chief complaints too, is you don't learn any of this stuff in school. She goes, this should be taught in high school. You shouldn't be trying to figure this out after you get your first job about even what kind of money to put where you put your money in a 401k. Do you not? How much percentage? That, like, there's so much to learn.
There is so much to learn. And my boss, Lori Price, has always said, we learn how to dissect a frog, but we don't learn how to, read a tax return or,
That's so funny. That's right.
Write out, pay your bills. The one thing I think is a good stepping stone for women, maybe your daughter's age, is to really understand your paycheck and what is coming in and what is going out and how is it affecting your bottom line. So you may have your paycheck that says, you're bringing in whatever amount. Well, if you put money away out of that paycheck into your 401k versus when you don't, how does that affect your paycheck? Because it will affect your paycheck. There's pre-tax money and after-tax money. And so I always say, learn with your own money. Start with your paycheck, see where your taxes are getting paid out. If you hire a CPA, look at your tax return, have them take the time to explain it to you, but learn with your own money. And everybody knows at the end on their payday what they have left to spend, right?
Yeah, my daughter's like, what's FICA? I'm like, oh,
exactly.
She didn't know what.
And so,
now.
look it up, Google it, sit with your paycheck and really learn your paycheck. And I think that when people understand, well, if I put some money away in my 401k, actually, I'm going to save on taxes from my paycheck and I'm saving in a retirement account. So I think there's different things people can do depending on what stage of life they're in to really understand how money affects them daily.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point about stage of life, because my daughter, let's just take her for example, she'll be 29 this month. Oh my God. She's old, I'm not. She's
right, exactly.
But she's not married, but so there's that one stage, right, when you get that first job, and then you get married and you combine stuff, and then the kids come, I'm just doing a traditional, and then the kids come, and then you're in your 40s and you start, and then your extracurriculars, then you're thinking college, and then retirement, and there's all and so your money needs to move with that, right?
Exactly. There's a flow of what's important at the time. And, sometimes at 28 or 29, you're just trying to get by, right? I mean,
yeah, and have fun.
So, right. And have fun. So there's that stage. And then there's the stage where, I'm 45, a lot of my friends, and it's a combination of retirement and college planning. And that's a lot, and paying your day-to-day bills. And with two working parents, a lot more now than there were, back a while ago, I guess. Yeah. It's a lot to juggle, and there's not always a lot to go around. And that's when things get tough and credit card debt comes into play, and really making sure you understand how that can affect you and your credit scores for a long time if you're not making the right decisions now.
Right.
And listen, money is extremely emotional. Most people have the same ideology about it that maybe their parents had, and they grew up with a type of structure, and that's how they then do it. Yeah. And breaking that could be hard if what they learned was not the correct way.
Yeah, there's always a money story. There's always a money story. And whether your parents told you or not told you, so directly or indirectly, you still observed and absorbed. And then we can live it out in a lot of different ways. Do you know what I mean? You watch your parents not have enough, so you get money and you don't know how to handle it, or you keep it all and you're always nervous ninny about it. So
and it's really funny because that's how I got into the divorce arena of my business. My father was a CPA, so I probably always had a little number thing going. I love budgeting my money all the time, but I didn't have much to budget. I was just always, I literally once a month, I'm just playing around with my numbers.
Yep.
But I grew up watching my mom wait for her alimony check every week. And it was, is the money coming? And so when I specifically remember I went off to college, I went to California, and I needed a bed, and my parents were fighting over who was going to buy me the bed. And I was like, I'm never going to ask anybody for money. I've watched this. I want my own. I'm never going to ask for it. I got my first credit card in 1994 when I think I was 18 or 19, graduated, and I'm buying my own bed.
Wow.
And in my world, I did the opposite, because watching somebody have to ask for money all the time, I couldn't even imagine. It was so draining that for me, I didn't want to ever be that person.
There's your lesson.
And that was my lesson. Yeah. The bed, buying the bed. Yeah. And so you learn and I didn't know I was having a learning moment at the time. And, unfortunately, when we talk about divorce, alimony runs out, right? Yes. And then what? And it becomes a really big problem if you're not set up to succeed when your alimony ends. And so that's where I really try to help and encourage women to understand, where are you? When is your alimony going to end? And what do you need to do now to get ready for that point?
And child support will end.
And child support will end. And child support in Connecticut barely covers what you need anyway, right? Yes. I mean, the guidelines are not the best. So, it's really about taking those steps during those alimony periods, which another word is maintenance, because it's only supposed to maintain you
Right.
for a certain amount of time, right?
Yep.
And do you need to get a part-time job? Should you go back to school and just learn computer work? What can you be doing, even if you have little kids now, to help you become more financially independent when that alimony ends?
Yeah.
And that's really my goal.
Yeah. Rather than don't come to you in June if alimony is ending in July. Like,
Right.
you have to plan for this stuff. Like it's a planning period.
And 10 years may sound like a long time, but if you're only going to be, 55 in 10 years, you still got 10 more years before you're going to collect Medicare, maybe 13 more years before Social Security kicks in, and it's harder to find a job at 55 than it is at 45. It doesn't mean you can't, but if you've never had one, it's going to be tougher. Absolutely. So what skills can you start doing early on so that when you're ready, or when the kids are ready for you to move forward a little bit more, where can you jump in and start getting, your feet wet so that you can bring in your own money down the line?
So let me ask your opinion on this. When someone is in, let's just say, someone came into my office for a mediation. Would you say that they each get their own financial person to kind of assess what's going on, or are you an advocate of people using one person to help them both figure it out?
I think it depends. Obviously, sometimes there's just too many chefs in the kitchen, right? I mean, when you talk about collaborative and divorce, you got the therapist and the financial and the two attorneys, and there's a lot. I find that typically I get brought into the mediation because either one party is not up to speed with the other financially, and I am there to basically handhold. Even maybe after the mediation, I'm saying, this is what happened today. Do you understand what we were talking about? We mentioned tax, we mentioned deferred comp, we've mentioned stock options. And they want to sit in the mediation and look like they understand, because they don't want to feel, like they're not up to par with this spouse that they're arguing with. And so after I can recap what we just talked about in English. So a lot of times I'm hired for that. And I find as I'm hired by that one person, I do end up working for both, because before you know it, the husband, he's doing his own job. He doesn't have time to work on, how much is our budget? What are we spending on the credit card? So then he's sending me stuff and saying, can you analyze this? Or can you look at that? Right. And it's like, then it's a big discussion. And that's when it works out great, right? We're all on the same team. I'm really not there to say this is fair and that's not fair. Mm-hmm. I'm there to say, this is where the finances are, and this is what it's going to look like split. What can both people afford? And I don't think you really need to. A lot of times, maybe the husband has his financial advisor already, and he may bounce that off of that person on the side. But usually I find if I'm in the mediation, I can work for both, even if I'm hired by one.
Right. No, I get
and I think the conversation flows a little better because I'm present and in the conversation. But yeah, of course, if the husband's more comfortable bringing in one of his own, that's fine. I'm not sure if that's money well spent, but everybody can do whatever works for them.
Yeah, I think some of the best mediations I've done, and I always do the parenting plan first, because I don't want people using the children after they're mad about the money. So lock them in. I lock them into the parenting piece. But the best mediations are the ones I think where you have a really good financial person. I think you need the financial person before you need outside of the parenting piece. But outside of that, that's the most important person in the game is the financial person.
Well, I obviously agree with you.
Yeah, no, I just do.
But I do think that I think it's a whole support system, because I really think you need the team of the therapist if there's going to be issues, because like we just discussed, money is emotional. So there might be a therapist that can say, listen, John, this is coming up because your dad or mom did this. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So to have a more productive conversation, there's a therapist, whether they're part of the problem, whether they're part of the process or they get bounced off, afterwards. And I do a lot of, workshops with Rosemary Ferrante as part of the divorce resource. And it's all about building your support system, because you really need, listen, I always say your friends are great to cry to, but they're always going to be on your side. They're always going to enable you, and they're always going to want to make you feel good. But you can't listen to them when it comes to what you need to be making decisions on professionally, as far as your children, your marriage, your finances. And you need that great support system. And it's usually a combination of the therapist, the mediator, the attorney, the financial person.
Yeah.
It takes a village, right? And
takes a village to get divorced is correct.
It does. It does. People
who doesn't want to fight.
Absolutely. And you listen, there's so many lines out there, but you have a surgery and they say, do not make any crazy decisions. You just had a surgery. This is not the right time. You're going through a trauma,
yes.
But yet divorce is so traumatic. And here people are expected to make some of the biggest decisions of their life during that time. So how clear can your head be? I mean, you're going through a trauma.
Yes.
And I think you're going to be as successful as you surround yourself with the people, and just say, I'm going to spend the money, I'm going to need the help, but I'm going to get through this the best I can.
Yeah. So, and I think the hand holding and teaching, really, I think it's a teaching moment for everyone, for not only just the women, for the men too, because they may understand some more terminology, but they still have to live in a different space afterward. And they have to wrap their brain around how they're going to manage their own lives, as well as still helping the family unit. And so, and the women may have their own issues. And that's why I agree with you. Like having people to bounce things off of is so helpful. And just follow you, make sure you're okay.
Exactly.
Because what's on paper may not really work out that great. Like you may have to tweak it.
Oh, for sure. So many times we're sitting there coming up with great ideas, and all of a sudden we're like, let's pull the CPA in because there's going to be tax, and then the CPA is like, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't the way the law's written. And it's like, all right, now let's go back and make sure that the words are written correct, then the attorney's got work to do and I have got work to do. And it's really, you need everybody. It's a business decision. And when you make a business decision, you usually pull in a lot of professionals, and a divorce is no different, unfortunately.
No, it's just a new contract. You have a marital contract, and now you have the divorce contract. It's a new business deal, a business arrangement. Hate to say it, bring it down to that, but basically it's what it is.
Yeah. And people don't realize that when they get married.
Yes.
Which is a whole nother conversation, right? But
it is. But speaking to that, would you tell somebody, let's say you have a young lady or a gentleman listening, midnight, just stumbles on this video. Would you say to somebody, the first thing, would you go back to saying, understand your paycheck? Is that the first thing you would say to a single person?
Yes, I would say understand your paycheck, understand what's coming in and out, understand what you're paying. But really, when you're getting serious with a spouse, I think it's really important to make sure you're on the same page financially, just like you're on the same page potentially with religion and raising children. You need to have some type of groundwork that you're going to work on when it comes to your finances. What's the most you can spend before discussing it with each other? Just guidelines, because money is emotional. And I've had my own issues with that. I mean, I married my husband 2 years ago. We've been together 11 years. I was terrified to combine anything, because the last thing I wanted to do was repeat my parents' mistakes, right?
Yeah, be buying it all back again.
Right, exactly. So I think it's a lot of conversation and making sure that, and there's nothing wrong with meeting with financial planners and advisors pre-marriage, during marriage, and saying, let's take a look at where we are so we're on the same page. And I think I was talking to a therapist the other day that said, the one reason she doesn't think she's as successful keeping couples together is because they come too late to her, and people should be talking and communicating throughout their marriage. You don't have to wait for it to be really bad. And I believe the same with the finances. It should be joint conversations all the time. It should be reviewing where you are and what's coming in and what's going out and the value of a dollar.
Right.
And unfortunately, people are busy, right? People are busy and it falls to the wayside. And then,
and then it implodes.
I was going to say, and then it implodes and everybody's on a different page. Well, I didn't know that you weren't making as much money. Well, I didn't know you were going to Whole Foods every day. And well, what do you think you were eating for dinner? And, and it's an ongoing conversation that I think both parties should have. Now, when we want to start talking about the narcissistic controlling husband, I think it gets a little difficult because they like to say they make all the money, so they should be in control of the money. And there's many women out there that have no idea what's in their checking account, no passwords, they can't log in, they can't see anything. They don't think they've ever signed a tax return, even though they've filed joint taxes. And that's a very, very common issue in Fairfield County, especially.
It is.
And to that, that's therapy, because I can't help, that's a marital dynamic.
Yeah.
And that's something that's I think is why you need a therapist to come in on that aspect.
Yeah, a lot of times I agree with you, especially in the area where we both work. And I think the problem with that is by the time they're figuring out that they're not getting the passwords or things like that, that it really is it's late in the game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because it's like having your head in the sand a little bit. And when you pull it out and you realize, Yeah.
And I would say that unfortunately is a majority of my work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm needed so much, because the head is just getting out of the sand.
Yeah.
And that's a tough situation.
It is, but there's hope at the end of that, because once you get on top of things, I always say knowledge is power, data is power. I'm a former math teacher. Numbers don't lie. Numbers are numbers. And once you wrap your head around, you don't have to like what you're seeing. You can be mad at yourself because you weren't on top of it. But once you get on top of it, there's a lot of hope. There's power in being able to do something.
Numbers freak out a lot of people. And it seems to be that side of the brain that is mostly women just don't get numbers as much as men do for whatever the reason is. And it's fine, but I just think if you realize that, it's like hire somebody and say, I want to review, I want to understand this. I'm happy to look over fake documents that I could pull up offline and explain to a woman who may have no idea what's going on. This is what you can look for. This is, start educating yourself on your own even.
Yes.
So that you then can have a better conversation with your, husband or soon to be ex. But there's so much out there that you can learn. But some people don't want to learn because it's overwhelming.
There's places to go though. And I think, places, with someone like yourself, who's a CDFA, and it matters to get in the right direction, right? It really matters so can you just speak quickly, just in case there's somebody watching, what is the difference between what you're doing and what a CPA does? Because people will always ask, I don't know who to go to. Do I go to my accountant? Do I go to someone like a planner?
Right. So I'm a financial advisor, financial planner. So I do all of the things that a regular I manage money, manage IRA, brokerage accounts, retirement account assets. But when it comes to divorce, it's more about understanding and having your CDFA designation. It's about understanding the division of assets and how it's going to potentially affect you later. It's understanding the short-term and long-term settlement options. Can I afford this house and for how long? Do I then have to sell it? when we split accounts, what does that look like? Which accounts, should I take or not take? Which stocks should I take or not take? Should everything be done equally based on the different tax brackets of the two individuals now that they're separating? So there's a lot of the division aspect, projecting on and looking at, right. And looking at, well, the alimony is going to end here and the child support is going to end here and the Social Security will come in here and the medical will, the Medicare will come here. Where CPAs, I don't find them as like future planners as much.
Okay.
Listen, my dad's a CPA. He'd probably tell me he could do everything I can do, but I know that that's not true. I have software to project alimony ends here, but we got your retirement growing here, and now you can take this money that's coming out of your IRA. And where the CPA, I think, is extremely crucial because there are tax ramifications that we have to understand. But I don't find that they're as helpful when it comes to projecting long-term settlement options and goals. And
that's really helpful, I think, first, because that's the number one question I get asked from women will be, when they come in and they just start talking, the couple will come in and, well, I don't really have anything to do with the money, like we've alluded to, and I don't really know who to talk to. Should I call my accountant? That's always their first thing. Should we call and they'll look to the husband. Should we call the accountant?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't personally think so, but it's nice.
Eventually, I think you get to the accountant, and absolutely. I think it's important.
Yeah.
But as you're discussing the financial picture, the assets, the liabilities, the debt, how are we going to divide it? Where does it make sense? Who's going to get what?
All of it.
All of it. Yeah. So I find that CDFAs are crucial in the during process, the beginning process, the discovery process. Yeah. Especially when it comes to mediation, a lot of mediators, you're not doing as much discovery as if you have attorneys, right? Which we don't want to have attorneys if we don't have to until we need them.
Yeah.
But we still want to make sure we're not missing anything. So by having a CDFA, it's like, all right, I can peek at the tax returns and see, is there anything missing here that was here before? Are we looking at paychecks and making sure what is he deferring in comp and IRA and stocks, and what's going to be vested in a few years that was maybe earned during the marriage? And it's kind of a lighter discovery without it being so like litigated.
Yes, right. Yes. As I see her head spinning.
Yeah.
Because even you're using terms, and I'm picturing some of my clients, or their head is spinning, although they want to appear that they're not alarmed by any conversation, although they'll walk out or text you later. I have no idea what was just said.
All the time. And I'm like, that's fine.
It is fine.
There's two things you should know. One, let's set up an appointment and we'll review it in more detail, just me and you. And two, feel confident that I understand, so nothing's getting past you. Because I think a lot of times they're worried they're going to be treated unfair because they don't understand something.
Absolutely.
So,
not the case.
Right? It's not the case. You have somebody here who you've hired who's going to make sure that no one's getting one up on you, or if they do, it's a reason, and we've discussed it, and you're okay with it. But let's really review this entire conversation we just had, and let's try again, me and you separately.
Now, can you take clients from anywhere?
Yeah. No.
Okay. So someone watching in Idaho right now, it would be able to pick up a phone and connect with you.
Yes. I mean, the difference is I'm not as familiar with any other state's laws as far as, what is considered in the pot equitable, but I'm not doing legal anyway. I'm going to always say, talk to your attorney, talk to your mediator. But when we're looking at the financial picture and assets, and because
that's all. That stays the same. Those numbers stay the same no matter where you live.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And they can do a review counsel and the whole bit at the end.
Right.
Themselves. And so, Hollis, how would somebody get a hold of you?
So you can find me at on our website, pricefinancialgroup.com, which we actually are merging with a company called Merit. So you will actually probably see our website be changing in the next week or so. And that is just because we've grown and we need some better infrastructure for compliance and payroll and technology.
Yeah. And Merit,
MERIT. Yes,
Okay.
Merit Financial. And we're going to still stay local women's firm in Wilton, but we are part of a bigger company right now. Again, the infrastructure that we need is a lot of help with FINRA and the SEC and all of our regulations.
Okay.
And so you can find me at pricefinancialgroup.com though,
Okay.
or you can email me at hhardiman@pricefinancialgroup.com.
And that's Hardiman with an I, right? HARDI.
Yes, so it's HHARDIMAN at pricefinancialgroup.com. Or you can reach me at 203-423-5985. And I do free consultations at first for everybody.
Nice.
Got to make sure we're the right fit. So
yes. And so I'll put all your stuff in the details below when we finish.
Great. And then just to add, we do have the divorceresourceCT.com,
yes.
Which is our monthly workshops that we host for women contemplating divorce. It's about an hour, and we go through just the legal and financial aspects. And sometimes we haven't as much with Zoom because of Zoom fatigue. But when we're in person, we like to add a therapist or someone like you who writes parenting plans and does different types of mediation. Yep. And we do that for free monthly so that women can get some education without having to spend $1,000 to meet an attorney.
And so it's on Zoom now?
Yes, so we've been doing it virtually. We have one coming up March 19th, I believe. And
where would you can find that, Hollis? Where would they find that?
DivorceResourceCT.com. And we've got some worksheets up there and some good reference books. And it's really great for people in the beginning stages of divorce to just get a little base knowledge.
Yeah, I like that. And that's a great service if it's free for people to be able to hop on and just kind of listen or ask a question, I would imagine.
We do questions at the end, and we go through the difference between mediation, litigation, collaborative, and things to start looking for financially if you're in the beginning stage and you need to know where to begin.
So helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll list all that. So at the end of the video, you can go and watch, you can go and take down Hollis's information and check out her, what's it called? Second Saturday?
It's a second Saturday workshop. We just stopped doing it on Saturdays. And so the name was throwing people off. So we changed it to Divorce Resource, and we try to do them either we'll do a lunch and learn on a Wednesday or Friday, or we'll do it nighttime. So we're figuring out times. We change them all the time to try to get everybody.
Gotcha. I think a happy hour one would be best. I would show up for that one.
Yes, wine and cheese is on our list. The first one, once we're allowed to see people again.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This is like super informative. Even if you're not going through divorce, like just having financial knowledge is just so important, and it's so empowering. And like you said, your finances carry emotions with them, right?
Yep.
So very
absolutely. And listen, we're happy to help struggling couples, because we don't want them. The divorce doesn't have to be the answer all the time, right? So if we can help people get on the same page financially, that would be the best case scenario.
Absolutely. Actually, that's funny that you say that. I had a couple that came in, and he was like, I think I'm kind of done. And the problem was she had such fear around the money part, and he'd want to sit and talk about the money, and she'd like, well, you feel controlling. And so once you can help people, even teach them how to have those conversations around money, so it doesn't feel like one's controlling the other person, like so they're not getting divorced because they've learned how to have better communication and dialogue with each other. Makes all the difference.
Yes, absolutely. I think I lost you for a second, unfortunately.
That's okay. But yeah, but the point is that once you can help teach people about how to have difficult conversations, it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Okay, good. My Zoom's back. Yeah. Sorry. I just lost connection for a second. Yes, for sure. So, yes, Colleen, thank you so much. It's great seeing you. And we have to get together.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And I'll send you the link, and you can find Hollis at the information I'll provide below. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Hollis. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.